Anubis had always seemed enigmatic. He was a cat whose austere, pointed stare made everyone in his vicinity uncomfortable. Things were obviously tight as soon as Jason and Anubis entered the vet's door that fatal day. The veterinarian had a good awareness of unusual events and was well seasoned. He just looked once before his expression darkened. Without speaking, he took up the phone and dialed the cops. His tone left no room for misunderstanding. Quietly seated in the waiting area, Jason was unaware that a storm was approaching. Why the veterinarian would contact the police over his cat, Anubis, eluded him. After all, Anubis was his loving pet. Still, Jason had increasing stomach anxiety as the minutes passed. From a calm to a terrifying atmosphere in the room, Jason knew he had to bring Anubis out of there. But the door opened and policemen entered before Jason could leave. Their presence let Jason understand he could not flee anymore. When he found the vet was concerned about more than he had assumed, it confused, terrified, and deeply sad him. Anubis wasn't normal. Something was wrong with him. The vet's remarks from earlier kept playing through his memory. Jason considered a number of things. For what length of time has this been happening? Just why was the vet so afraid? Most importantly, what flaw in Anubis would make their future together hazardous? Jason drove home, and Anubis silently peered out the window. The day passed slowly. The travel was silent a lot of times. The anxiety Jason was experiencing and the clear image of the officers waiting at the veterinarian's office would not go away. Desperate to understand what the vet had done and what the unusual sensation was surrounding his cat, he continued going over what had transpired in his head. Jason went home, and his heart was pounding as he walked onto the porch. He saw something that made him nervous, yet also relieved. His two lads, Melvin and Marty, arrived at the door before their mother, Monica. Their joyful cheers were quite different from the tension growing inside him. Knowing Monica would not enjoy him, Jason tightened his hold on the leash as he emerged. He was preparing for an enraged reply, and for a minute time seemed to slow down. Monica's enraged stare sliced straight through him as she entered the threshold. Surprisingly, though, Anubis remained silent. Not meowing or growling at the person approaching him, the odd cat had sparkling eyes and highly protracted ears. Rather, he maintained his composure and silently absorbed the tension all around. Melvin and Marty exclaimed delighted shouts and gushed that they now own a cat. Monica's frown met with their naive and genuine giggling. Jason was conflicted. He was glad and regretful. Monica's first wrath was gradually subsiding as she started to see something in Anubis, a tranquility that contradicted his appearance. Still, given they had small twins with them, she was concerned about the dangers of bringing a cat with such an unusual past home. Everything she said reflected this anxiety. Jason informed Monica what had transpired. He said that the shady vendor had merely wanted to get rid of the cat and that the veterinarian had phoned the police since Anubis was unlike other animals. He claimed to have taken a snap decision as he felt strongly that he could not allow the cat to wind up at a shelter where it would be put down. As he said, his voice strayed between grief and resolve. At first, Monica was rather enraged, but as she listened, her anger began to wane. She understood from inside her that maybe Anubis was not what he appeared to be. Still, the conversation had only started, and several questions remained. 3 days later, Jason brought Anubis to the veterinarian for an all-around exam. What may have made him uncomfortable? The waiting room unexpectedly packed that afternoon. Appointments had exceeded expectations, and earlier an emergency case had accentuated the already busy atmosphere of the clinic. Although Jason was used to getting odd stares from other pet owners, he couldn't help but notice some folks went the additional mile and kept on to their cats even tighter as they passed by. Jason stayed driven even though he was afraid. He felt his own tension rising as he waited, even though he believed that even the chilly and frightening vet's office couldn't make Anubis agitated. Following what felt like an eternity, a staff member approached Jason. Her voice was low, and her cheeks flushed with remorse mixed with concern. Though she stated it with some guilt, what she said confirmed what Jason had long held belief. His cat seemed somewhat unusual. Her response, albeit brief, presented an unexpected image. The veterinarian made a considered decision rather than calling the police straight away out of fear. Anubis seemed to be more than simply a disciplined pet. His calm all the time, quiet demeanor, and emotionally aloof attitude appeared to point to a different history. Jason's ideas were bursting out. Had Anubis received instruction on manners for a cat? Alternatively, had he had any sort of intensive training that left him so rigid and inattentive? Everything mentioned made one thing very clear. Anubis was not the typical cat Jason had in mind. Quietly, the worker whispered something that startled Jason. He suddenly found himself clutching his new pet, whose odd quiet now revealed secrets. The atmosphere felt tight even though nobody was speaking. His children were chatting animatedly in the backdrop. He was confident that the solutions resided in the veterinary expertise and in the thorough investigation of this unusual canine. Jason knew the vet had requested Anubis and him to wait outside when he heard the receptionist ask a question. Some persons in the waiting room had already claimed they felt unsafe. While they awaited their appointment, he thought the cool air would help them unwind. For a time, Jason considered what may happen from this apparently little decision. Just a few minutes later, as soon as they stepped outdoors, a man sporting a heavy coat passed by. He slowed down, looking at Anubis. Stopped, he questioned Jason. "Is that your cat?" Once Jason verified, the man bent down near to the large cat. When people saw Anubis, most were terrified. This man wasn't. Rather, he was almost reverently curious. The man sporting the long coat claimed to be a senior physician returning from a vacation. Though he was keen to hurry to his next appointment, Anubis made him want to stop and chat with Jason. Though he said nothing about what had piqued his curiosity, it was obvious he was eager to run over the meeting. Saying he would expedite the procedure, he volunteered to move Jason's doctor appointment to his own. Although Jason felt this was strange, he eventually yielded, since he didn't know how much more he would have to wait, and it was chilly outside. The senior vet then entered the building, content. 10 minutes later, Jason was summoned in. Jason didn't give a damn about their disdain, even if some people laughed at him because he cut in line. Anubis's secret was far more fascinating than their limited viewpoint. Jason walked his calm cat into the appointment room when he arrived at the veterinarian's office. The senior vet greeted them with a businesslike attitude. He seemed as though he were preparing for surgery from his attire. Still, the veterinarian appeared more fascinated in staring at the cat than in listening to Jason discuss his concerns about Anubis. Jason was cut off midway through the workout by the veterinarian. "Just a moment, I need to take care of something," he remarked, before deftly shutting a side door. Left by himself in the room, Jason felt disoriented and afraid. Though all the commotion made it difficult to comprehend what the folks on the other side of the door were saying, he could hear them. Jason was left to wait by himself once the 2-minute speech ended. Almost 15 minutes had gone by, and nobody had returned. This made Jason more anxious. He peered inside as the doorknobs were locked. He started to knock and even pound on the door in order to arrange for someone to respond. As he struggled to understand why no one appeared to care about him, he moved from being frustrated to enraged. "Is there any connection to Anubis?" Jason kicked the door in with an enraged fury. His pulse was beating, and he was terrified about what may happen since he was so enraged. When the door opened, it appeared as though nothing had offended the old vet. Furious, Jason sought to find out what was happening. After a brief quiet and a glance at his watch, the veterinarian revealed the startling reality. He had phoned the police on Jason and Anubis. Jason might have been shocked. He sought to understand why people had such negative sentiments toward his cat. Having closely examined Anubis, the doctor claimed to have discovered something rather unique in him. Jason paid a dubious vendor at a farmer's market for an animal. Still, it was not your typical hairless cat. This was Sphinx cat. The veterinarian informed Jason that the vet belonged to a well-known religious leader in Mexico City who was renowned for imparting knowledge about Aztec civilization. Jason had always found the cat's composed conduct odd. Stories concerning this type of cat, according to the veterinarian, that the dead would follow it to the tomb and that it was sacred. The religious leader attended funerals using this cat, real name Zolo. Zolo would simply sit there and not give a damn about the folks wailing, thus God would not hasten their trip to the dead. It was a ritual designed to reassure those who had lost someone that life carries on. The vet's statements adopted a somber note right then. People who disagreed with the Aztec spiritual traditions kidnapped Zolo a few months earlier. Although his first intention was to murder him, the burglar ended up with the dishonest vendor. Jason came out of a difficult circumstance by choosing to obtain the cat. He could stop worrying about his cat behaving so calmly since he understood the truth about the reason for it. Joshua descended. The truth was very simple and plain. He knew he had to bring Zolo back to his natural owner, even though it broke his heart to say goodbye to the cat he had become close to. He felt terrible about it, even though he knew the decision was the proper one. Jason was unwilling to schedule to turn over Zolo. He felt terrible, irate, and responsible all at once during the procedure. Jason's family gathered when the time came to bid farewell to the cat that had already unexpectedly improved their lives. The officers arrived and handled all the paperwork. Zolo then was hauled away and returned to the Mexican City church leader. Jason received a lovely present from the leader a few days later, a large check. The check brought him tranquility and helped him to consider the crucial work he was meant to perform. Jason's family eventually acquired a new cat, but they pledged never to repeat the same error that led to this dilemma once more. Deep down, he felt he was acting appropriately. Returning Zolo allowed to ensure that a spiritually significant animal would not vanish into the domain of evil luck and preserve a sacred practice. Jason's story was supposed to encourage people not to trust quickly, to be conscientious, and to keep in mind that even calm-looking cats may be nasty. Though he occasionally missed Zolo's quiet demeanor, he felt good about himself since he knew that by acting morally, he had not only kept his family safe, but also restored harmony to a long-standing custom.